What if NASA never worked alone? Imagine engineers locked in underground laboratories, manipulating technologies that do not belong on Earth, ships no one has ever seen, classified records with information that would change everything you believe about the universe. The truth may be hidden right beneath our feet. NASA, known for its scientific advances, may be involved in a much larger conspiracy, where science and the impossible meet. What's behind space missions? What if that experimental ship was, in fact, an artifact recovered from another galaxy? The evidence is scattered but never revealed. Official silence may be the biggest sign that something much bigger is being protected. Hidden technologies, forbidden knowledge, and a direct connection to non-human civilizations, all kept out of public view. You're about to enter territory that few dare to explore. Get ready to see real images, hear unprecedented stories, and delve into documents that should remain secret. Because if that's true, nothing will be the same again. And as you watch, you'll realize that certain coincidences are much more than that. Names, dates, accidental miscommunications, even leaks ignored by the mainstream media. Everything starts to fall into place. Have you ever stopped to think about why some images are constantly cropped or blurred? Or why do so many NASA missions end ahead of schedule without convincing explanations? What is being hidden and why? The right question was never, is this real? And yes, why didn't they tell you before? Now tell me, do you believe that NASA works with alien technology in secret? Or is this all part of something even bigger that we can't even imagine? Write in the comments what you think is behind all of this. And pay attention, because the answers may be much closer than you imagine. But what really makes all this leave the field of theory and enter the territory of hidden evidence, it's the leaks that never received plausible explanations. In several leaked files, which disappeared from the internet as quickly as they appeared, it is possible to see internal structures in NASA spacecraft that do not follow any known terrestrial engineering standards. Perfect curved lines, panels with unknown symbols, and even connections that seem to respond to energy in an almost biological way. Engineers and technicians who worked on these projects were never seen giving interviews again. Coincidence? Or a carefully engineered pattern of silencing? What about leaked internal codes from confidential communications? Amidst so many technical lines and incomprehensible acronyms, some expressions are repeated with disturbing frequency. Unidentified material, unknown source of external origin, interference not compatible with human technology. These are documented excerpts, recovered by former employees and digital security experts who put their own lives at risk to bring this information to light. Many of them reported being followed, threatened, or simply disappeared from the public sphere following these revelations. And if that still doesn't seem like much, think about live broadcasts from the International Space Station. How many times have you seen an image being abruptly cut just when an unidentified object appears in the field of vision? These are not isolated cases. There are records, all archived by attentive users and disseminated on independent forums, in which moving objects with impossible geometric shapes and speeds that defy known laws of physics appear for seconds before the image fails. And the official explanation? Always the same: technical error. If all this makes sense to you, leave your like now, because it shows that you are also seeking the truth that so many try to hide. The question that remains is no longer, are they hiding something, but rather, how far has this secret advanced without the public becoming suspicious? Why does the mainstream media simply ignore, discredit, or ridicule any and all signs that NASA is dealing with technology that may have come from another civilization? And more, why do so many independent scientists and scholars who try to investigate these clues face censorship, blocks in their research, and even persecution? What is at stake here is not just a revelation about the existence of life beyond Earth. It's about the control of the truth. Who decides what you can and cannot know? Who profits from the secret? What if some of the technology we use today, satellite communications, artificial intelligence, clean energy, is just the disguised reuse of advances far beyond our current understanding? There are those who say that some of these leaks were not accidents, but messages, fragments left inside by someone who knows that at some point the truth needs to come out. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving these revelations that do not appear in the news or on the main internet pages. And here is where everything starts to come together. Because if you think that NASA only operates in well-known research centers like Houston or Cape Canaveral, you need to dig deeper. The truth that has never been revealed to the public is that many of the greatest technological advances attributed to the North American Space Agency were born and continue to be developed in places that officially don't even exist. One of them is Groom Lake, or as you may already know, the dreaded Area 51, a territory shrouded in legal fog, hidden by layers of military secrecy, and shielded by protocols that not even congressmen can break. And the most shocking thing, scientists linked to NASA have already been identified operating directly at these facilities. Several former employees of civil and military agencies claim that since the 1980s, aerospace engineers who previously worked on NASA missions have been transferred to classified projects within bases such as Area 51 itself and S4 in Papoose Lake. Among them, names like Dr. Paul Chiss, a former McDonnell Douglas and NASA consultant, who has repeatedly mentioned impossible propulsion technologies based on principles that have never been released to the public. There is also the controversial figure of Bob Lazar, which, despite being the target of discredit campaigns, reported in detail the existence of 9 ships with anti-gravity technology, one of which, according to him, was being analyzed by scientists with direct experience at NASA. And it doesn't stop there. The involvement of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, only reinforces this subterranean connection between alien technology and secret military development. DARPA operates in the shadows, advancing technologies that only reach our knowledge decades later to be in operation. The connection between her and the Lockheed Martin, especially the Skunk Works department, is the most sensitive point in this web. This was the arm that developed the SR-71, Blackbird, the F-117 Nighthawk, and several aircraft that for years were treated as unidentified flying objects before their existence was officially recognized. And guess what? Documents reveal that NASA engineers participated in joint projects with Skunk Works, including during the development of plasma propulsion and stealth technology. The question that echoes among scholars and independent investigators is, why would NASA be involved in top-secret military installations operating under jurisdictions beyond civilian reach? And even more, what exactly are they trying to do? Reverse on these bases. It is no secret among military circles that at least 3 artifacts of non-human have been stored at Area 51 since the late 1940s, some of them with systems so advanced that reverse engineering is still ongoing more than 70 years later. A leaked confidential report in 2001, attributed to Lockheed's Advanced Division, explicitly mentions the existence of a biomechanically designed craft stored under continuous surveillance in Nevada. The document, never officially recognized, still circulates among forums and secret archives. It is no coincidence that the greatest leaps in modern technology, such as microprocessors, optical fibers, and night vision devices, appeared in sequence shortly after decades of greater intensity in reports of contacts and falls from unidentified objects. What was once attributed to science fiction is now used by you, on your cell phone, on your car's GPS, in the way you access information. But which part of this was actually developed by us, and which part was simply copied, adapted, disguised under the cloak of innovation? There are indications that NASA itself is testing propulsion systems based on zero-point energy, obtained from technology of extraterrestrial origin, in installations that have never been shown to the public. Rumors say that these technologies are so powerful that they could completely abolish the use of fossil fuels, which would explain the strategic interest to keep them secret. The existence of these connections between space agencies, military complexes, and mega-armament corporations is no longer a conspiracy theory. It is a recurring pattern that reveals itself whenever someone dares to look deeper into the right documents. Now think with me, why keep all this hidden? What would happen if the population knew that we had already mastered forms of interstellar travel, that it is possible to cross the solar system in hours, maybe minutes? The world would change, the economy would change, and most importantly, power would change hands. Therefore, whoever controls this information does not want to lose control. And perhaps that's why so many of these researchers, whistleblowers, and insiders end up silenced, discredited, or disappearing without a trace. And now, I want you to comment below. Do you believe NASA is directly involved in reverse engineering alien technology? If yes, type "The secret is no longer safe." And if you've heard about Area 51, comment what you think is being hidden there. Your opinion matters more than you realize at this moment in history. And now we come to one of the most uncomfortable parts for those who still believe that all technological advances came exclusively from human effort. Because when we calmly analyze certain revolutionary inventions attributed to NASA, something doesn't add up. Many of these technologies emerged suddenly, without any prior development history, as if they had simply been delivered in the right hands. One of the most intriguing cases is that of the so-called shape memory metal alloys, materials capable of deforming under pressure and heat, but returning to their original shape as if they were alive. The first public appearance of this type of technology was in laboratories associated with NASA, but old reports mention the recovery of debris with these properties after a certain plane crash in Roswell. 1947. Coincidence? The truth is that many independent experts believe that these leagues were not created, but replicated from structures recovered from alien ships. The molecular behavior of these metals is so advanced that not even the most respected scientists were able to explain how something like this was developed amid the limited technology of the time. And the most curious thing, secret military records indicate that, shortly after the Roswell incident, hidden funds began to appear, directed to laboratories linked to aerospace defense and the experimental materials sector. And that's just the beginning. The question of anti-gravity propulsion raises even more suspicion. How is it possible that, from one moment to the next, classified documents talk about devices that nullify gravity using pulsating electromagnetic fields? These technologies appear in NASA reports under complex technical names, but the basic concept is the same as that described by several whistleblowers. Ships that float without heat emission, without combustion, without any form of traditional propulsion. All this is much more reminiscent of descriptions of UFOs than any known aircraft. And once again, the connection with Groom Lake, S4, and the engineers working on projects that never saw the light of day emerges. We also cannot ignore the self-sustainable energy systems, sources that generate clean, infinite energy without apparent consumption. Prototyped in secret, these technologies are kept under absolute secrecy, citing risks to national security. But why hide something that could save the planet from the energy crisis? Simple. Power. Control. These sources may well have been discoveries, no invented. There are theories and unofficial documents that mention an artifact of extraterrestrial origin with the ability to convert quantum vacuum energy, technology capable of powering entire cities without pollution at no cost. But this knowledge is beyond the reach of civil society, stored in compartments where only a few have access. Notice the pattern: super-intelligent materials, revolutionary forms of energy, propulsion that contradicts the laws of physics we know. These are not slow, predictable advances like those that occur in medicine or the human sciences. They are jumps, quantum leaps that appear without logical explanation, almost as if someone had left clues or even complete manuals for carefully selected scientists to follow. And all of this forces us to ask, what else is being developed right now away from the eyes of the world? What already exists but has not yet reached the public? And the most disturbing thing, will the truth about these technologies be revealed one day? Or will we continue to believe that they were just human genius? And comment below, do you think NASA really created these technologies? Or were they recovered from something much more advanced? He writes, "This knowledge is not ours, if you believe that we are using technology from beyond Earth." And if you want to go further, comment on which of these inventions seems most impossible to have been created by humans. One of the most disconcerting moments of this entire journey is when the truth begins to seep through the cracks in the system itself. We're not talking about anonymous bloggers or conspiracy theorists on obscure forums. We're talking about people from inside, scientists, engineers, military personnel, and astronauts who saw with their own eyes what most of us would never have imagined possible. One of them is Edgar Mitchell, sixth man to set foot on the moon and astronaut on the Apollo 14 mission. In one of his most iconic interviews, Mitchell declared, "We are not alone, and governments know this." A simple but devastating sentence. He didn't suggest, he didn't speculate, he stated, in a direct way, like someone who has been carrying a weight for years and finally decides to say what they know. Mitchell wasn't the only one. Bob Dean, a former NATO member with access to top-secret documents, declared that he had read reports that confirmed the presence of ships of non-human origin in orbit around the Earth. Some of them, according to him, with the size equivalent to an aircraft carrier. And do you think anyone in the mainstream media gave voice to this? Of course. These testimonies are systematically swept under the rug, ridiculed, edited out of context, or simply ignored, always with the same excuse: no scientific evidence. Another important name is that of the former NASA employee Clark McClelland, who claims to have seen through surveillance cameras a non-terrestrial humanoid figure interacting with astronauts inside the cargo compartment of a space shuttle. According to him, this figure was almost 3 meters tall, was standing inside the ship and moved with familiarity, as if it were part of a protocol already known to the astronauts. The result? His reputation was destroyed, he lost his job, and spent years trying to rebuild his life, all because he said what he shouldn't have. If these revelations are making you see things differently, leave a like right now, because this helps keep this truth alive, circulating, reaching more people. And what about Donna Hare, who worked directly in NASA's photographic laboratories? She revealed in an interview that there was a team dedicated solely to editing, erasing, and retouching photos that showed anomalous structures on the Moon, Mars, and in various images taken during space missions. These anomalies, according to her, were described internally as unidentifiable artifacts. Donna also reported being threatened with dismissal if she questioned the content of certain images again. In other words, what should not be seen was off. These stories are not isolated. They are repeated in different decades by different people with different levels of access and functions, all pointing in the same direction. There is a gigantic, shocking truth kept under lock and key, and the most perverse is the method used to hide everything: the manipulation of public opinion. Whenever a former employee speaks out, denying articles appear, experts paid to discredit, edits that cut out the most revealing part of the speech. The idea is simple: create an environment in which anyone who questions the official version looks like a lunatic, and it works. It works so well that to this day, even with dozens of consistent testimonials, the majority of the population still thinks it's all fiction. But you who are here, following this investigation, have already started to realize that the whole is much deeper than what they said, that we can no longer pretend that all of this is coincidence or invention. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving this information that no one else will show you, and that certainly won't be in the 8 o'clock newspaper. What if the biggest revelation of all isn't even the fact that we're dealing with alien technology, but rather that is it already being used right now, and we don't even realize it? Because while the entire world believes that we are taking our first steps into deep space, there is increasingly solid evidence that certain invisible technologies are already in full operation. Technologies that defy conventional physics, that circumvent geographic and strategic limits, and that mainly shouldn't exist according to what was officially revealed to the public. Observation satellites launched by NASA and other space agencies often exhibit movement patterns that are simply impossible to reproduce with the propulsion systems we know. There are records of abrupt trajectories, speed changes outside the curve, maneuvers that completely disregard inertia, and all of this in silence without any technical explanation that satisfies the independent experts who follow these launches. Some researchers claim that certain satellites are using gravitational warp field propulsion, something that theoretically should only exist in science fiction. But if it exists, and it is being used, why do we still live as if it were impossible? And it's not just observation. Several documents and testimonies point to the use of unconventional technologies in space defense systems. The US Space Force, created suddenly in 2019, is a structure that raises suspicions. Why create a force dedicated exclusively to space if, as far as we know, there is no imminent threat beyond Earth? The answer may lie behind the scenes, within the secret corridors of DARPA, Lockheed Martin, Boeing Phantom Works. There are mentions of weaponry based on directed energy, electromagnetic shields, and even real-time optical camouflage mechanisms, systems so advanced that they seem straight out of futuristic films, but which for some are already being tested in orbital prototypes. And if you think that's the limit, Think about the probes. Some recent space missions presented navigation routes so complex, with precise curves and millimeter approximations of celestial bodies billions of kilometers away, that even experts publicly questioned, how is such perfection possible, with practically zero margins for error? One of the most disturbing theories is that these probes, officially unmanned, are being guided by artificial intelligence systems based on non-human algorithms derived from reverse engineering. In other words, it wouldn't just be the hardware that came from outside, but also the brain behind the decisions. Now think with me, what if some of this technology was already in use, but not for public benefit? What if the global elite, or at least a fraction of them, already had access to forms of clean energy, ultra-fast transportation, instant communication over unknown frequencies, and protection against global threats we don't even know exist? That would explain a lot. It would explain why certain groups always seem one step ahead. It would explain why so many resources are channeled into programs that we never see, but that generate billions every year. Perhaps the hardest truth to face is this: the future has already begun. It's just not for everyone. As we live with filtered, outdated technologies and rely on fragile systems that keep us connected and productive, there are those who are already living on the border of the impossible. And that's not just unfair. This is a silent control about the evolution of humanity. Because whoever controls knowledge controls time. Whoever dominates technology dominates destiny. And whoever hides all this has already understood how to manipulate the game without anyone realizing they are losing. And now, comment below. Can you believe that these technologies are already being used in secret? He writes, "The future has been stolen," if you feel that this revolution is happening, but only for some. And if you've heard about something strange about satellites, probes, or space, weapons, share it here in the comments. Your vision could be the missing piece for us to put together this puzzle. Subscribe to the channel now to continue accessing content that reveals what no one else has the courage to show. Here, each video is a hidden piece of reality being revealed, a truth that could change everything. And now that all the pieces have started to fall into place, perhaps the most important question of all isn't, what are they hiding? But yes, who is really in charge? Because in the face of so many leaks, silenced testimonies, impossible technologies, and manipulated truths, it is impossible not to suspect that NASA is just a sophisticated facade, a human face, created to give comfort to the public, while behind the scenes another force, much older and much more advanced, drives everything. What if the world's most respected space agency is, in fact, just the veil covering a presence that has never gone away, an intelligence that is already among us, observing, interfering, and shaping the direction of our evolution or our stagnation? If you believe that NASA really hides alien life, comment below. Technology is not ours. This will show that you are among those who see beyond, among those who refuse to accept easy explanations, and who know that there is something much bigger than what they are telling us. Leave your like now. If this video made you think differently, because it helps this investigation continue to spread, before they try to erase everything once again. And now, for those of you who already understand that the story goes far beyond what they told, click on the next video that is appearing on your screen. A new theory with new evidence that could be the key to understanding what is behind the manipulation of space, time, and our own reality.